Don't let these tears fool you. It's all dog around this mug. I'm good.
Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones. And yes, I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you all so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. Shouts out to everybody in the chat. Shouts out to everybody listening around the country and around the world. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. On this edition, we're going to be giving our final thoughts on the Saints' Week 14 victory over the Carolina Panthers. What does this mean for the New Orleans Saints and the state of the NFC South? And we're also going to be talking about, of course, the little exchange between center Eric McCoy and quarterback Derek Carr. But let's go ahead and get into the game. We talked about it yesterday on the post-game show. A lot of Saints fans were, excited about the win, but still felt like a loss inside because, all the things that are going on with the team. But the Saints did get the victory by a score of 28-6. They kind of pulled away late, to make this look a little bit more, convincing than it actually was throughout the game. But all in all, they got the victory. They're in a three-way tie with the Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And look, I know this may not be the best situation, but the name of the game is to win. No matter how it looks, a win is a win. I mean, yesterday you had the Minnesota Vikings beat the Las Vegas Raiders 3-0. Nobody is going to care about what the score is. People just care about the victory. So for that particular standpoint, I understand when I was checking out Dennis Allen, the head coach of the New Orleans Saints press conference, I understand when he said you don't apologize for a victory. That part I can agree with. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention the feelings and the thoughts and the views of the Who Dat Nation. The fact that nobody really is buying into this whole regime. And people understand that although the New Orleans Saints beat a 1-11 football team 28-6, this is just setting this team up for even more failure and more disappointment in the future, because we all know that they don't have the competent coaching staff to be able to lead this team anywhere. And it's so dejecting to know that we celebrate and we cheer for an organization that does not have the best interests of their fans at heart. And it's mostly just about, catering to their own ego at this particular point. Because if you're trying to sell Dennis Allen to the masses, to Saints fans everywhere, based on this 28-6 victory, it just shows you how low the bar is when it comes to Saints football. The fact that they're celebrating in the locker room and giving out game balls and clapping and slapping each other on the behind after you beat a 1-11 team. And to be quite honest with you, the game was pretty close throughout. And there was a part of me when I seen Miles Sanders, get that big run, I was like, man, tell me that the Saints aren't about to lose to a 1-11 Carolina Panthers team, which that was not the case. But once again, you're in the locker room, you're celebrating each other, you're acting like you really did something, but you just snapped a 3-game winning streak. You got another home game versus the Giants, and you have an uphill battle. And not to mention the two foes of your division, they have a lead over you. So you have to basically win out in order for you to not only win the division, but make the playoffs in general. Because there is no way in the world that the New Orleans Saints are making the playoffs if they don't win out. I mean, if you look at the state of the NFC, you look at the teams that are in front of the New Orleans Saints, those are teams that actually beat the Saints. So if Minnesota can muster up some wins, if the Green Bay Packers can muster up some wins, then they already jump in front of the Saints because the Saints lost to both of those teams. So the only way that you're going to get into the playoffs is that you're going to win out. And once again, I know they beat the Carolina Panthers, a 1-11 Carolina Panthers team, but we all know that they're not going to be able to sustain this level of success. And we also know that if they would have played any other team on yesterday, they would have lost. I mean, the Carolina Panthers, they had 100 more total yards than the New Orleans Saints. Let that sink in. This team scored 6 points the entire game, and they still had 100 yards more than the New Orleans Saints. You have a quarterback in Derek Carr who had 37 yards until 8 minutes and 12 seconds into the fourth quarter. And this guy is out here flexing his muscles and acting as if he did something, right? Him celebrating after that lackluster performance is similar to me going to the blacktop and playing basketball against a bunch of fourth graders and grandstanding because I beat them. Like, it is absolutely insane the way that this team is operating right now. And I'm not saying walk around dejected and sad and all that kind of stuff and be upset that you won the game. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, let's put this thing into context. And this is the issue that Saint fans have with this organization. And I also feel like this organization has this us against the world type mentality, even when it comes to the fans. It seems to me like they are upset with Saint fans for wanting a better product. Basically, this is one of those things where somebody cooks you an overcooked steak, or they burn your meal, and then they sit it in front of you at a table and say, "Bon appetit." Are you out of your freaking mind? You burnt this meal. This steak is overcooked. Why would I sit up here and eat this, especially if I'm paying top dollar for it? It seems like the New Orleans Saints organization is upset as Saints fans for wanting a better product. If we were one of those fan bases that just take anything, then I feel like we wouldn't be good for anything. If you would just accept mediocrity, if you would just accept ineptitude in your life, I mean, in anything, in any facet of your life, I mean, you basically just conforming. And we're not trying to conform. Saint fans want a better product. And you cannot just shove anything down our throats, because you have shown us what a positive product looks like. You showed us what great quarterback play looked like. You showed us that knows what he's doing can do for a franchise that struggles. You showed us what it looks like. So with this particular situation, you cannot just show us prosperity and then take it away from us. The New Orleans Saints are trying to manipulate the masses, and we're not buying it. So I don't care about Mickey Loomis' 200 win. I don't care about them being in a three-way tie with two other teams in the NFC South. All I know is at the end of the season, if the New Orleans Saints want to make fans happy, if they want to satisfy fans, if they want fans to continue to spend their hard-earned money on a product that is the New Orleans Saints football, they are going to have to make some changes. They cannot sit around with their hands in their pockets. They cannot sit around here and blame the fans and blame the media for being in a position that they're in. They are going to have to make significant changes, because I can tell you this: nobody is checking for no Dennis Allen in 2024. Nobody wants to see Dennis Allen coach this football team in 2024. Now, when it comes to Derek Carr, you're stuck with him, right? We're stuck with him. You pay him $150 million, $100 million guaranteed over a 4-year span to lead your football team. So we all see that this coaching staff cannot get the best out of this guy. We also see that this coaching staff is too afraid to tell this guy to sit his ass down, especially when he's dealing with all these different injuries. And honestly, to me, it is a selfish move. It is a selfish move on behalf of Derek Carr. And also, to be quite honest with you, he is setting himself up for even more scrutiny. The fact that you're going out there looking like straight up slow, cold slow, and you're willing to go out there with all those injuries, knowing that you nicked up, knowing that you're limited, instead of allowing a backup quarterback and Jameis Winston to come in to facilitate the offense until you're well enough to come back. You are selfish in that particular regard. You don't want him to be out there because he sees that Jameis Winston, for the most part, is the fan favorite. And that is the type of energy that I don't want to be around. Insecure people bother me. They bother me. I don't like being around people that are insecure. Now, we all have levels of insecurity. Miss me with that stuff like, man, I'm overly confident. We all have our levels of insecurities. Some of us have larger insecurities than others. But this is one of those situations where a guy, to me, is so insecure that he is willing to take his broken down body out there and put on sorry performances, all for the sake to say that, oh, see how much of a warrior I am. See how tough I am. This is the reason why y'all need to be cheering for me. This type of stuff right here, to me, is selfish because you have an opportunity to actually win some games, to be able to separate yourself from this whole pack of the NFC South. But instead, you want to go out there with your banged up ribs, your 2 concussions, your AC joint all messed up, and you want us to give you sympathy. But in reality, you're bringing this on yourself. So why should we even care about any of your injuries? And then in the press conference, you want to talk about your ribs. We don't care about that, Derek. Not to say that we want you to get hurt. I don't want to see you get hurt. But the fact that you are so selfish to a point where you know you're dealing with these injuries, but you rather sit out here to try to create this narrative like you're just tougher than a $2 steak, like you're like one of those old territory 1980 wrestlers or something that just fight through all type of different situations. You want to create that narrative, but in reality, you're messing and tearing up your own legacy. You are destroying the reputation before it even began. I just wrote an article about Derek Carr. And I said, the relationship between Derek Carr and the Saints fans has gone sour. And a lot of it is because of his own doing. It's the fact that he is trying to create this image in himself that he cannot live up to. And he comes off as a person that is disingenuous and phony. And I don't shy away from me saying it because he does come off as a person that just tells you everything that you want to hear, borderline politician, and he can't live up to it because he's going to do something to show everybody that he is faker than a $3 bill. And then on top of that, once again, it is hard for me to accept the fact that Derek Carr is a team player when you are out here knowing that you're limited and you're setting a team back and you're forcing this team to be able to try to navigate around your limitations when all you have to do is sit your ass down. You're playing against a 1-11 football team. 1-11. If the Saints can't beat a 1-11 football team with Jameis Winston as their quarterback, then they're not very good. And you definitely need to move on from the coaching staff that you already have. I got a clip And this is Derek Carr speaking to the media. He's talking to the media about the little heated exchange between he and Eric McCoy. And I want y'all to pay attention to this.
Yeah, always. Yeah, I mean, things happen, man. We were both had our reasons. We were both right for an aspect. We were both wrong for an aspect. But that's not the only time that's ever happened. With me and a player or an offensive lineman or a center. That stuff happens, and the best part about it, Rich Bisaccia always taught me those moments are going to happen. You're going to have conflict sometimes, confrontation. Always circle back. So we went and circled back. We looked at each other, both smiled, because we both already knew, but that was, with all the cameras around, that stuff gets caught sometimes. But there's no problem. It's all good.
You've had a couple of those this year. Is that something that you kind of
me and Eric
think about, or do you mindful of?
Well, I'm just excited that we won a game today. People gritted through some stuff, and that's what I'm happy about.
You don't think that conflict's like maybe an issue, though?
Brother, I'm not trying to be negative with you anymore. I'm sorry.
So as you can see, he don't want to answer those questions. And honestly, shouts out to Nick Underhill, because it was well within his rights to ask this. This is a guy that has a history of, even though he has a short history as the quarterback of the Saints, but he has an extended history with this team at blowing up at players. He blew up at Chris Olave. He blew up at offensive coordinator Pete Carmichael. And now he's going at it with center Eric McCoy. And that is a question that people need to know, because this isn't like just two team guys. These are two captains of the team. You got the captain in Derek Carr, and you got the captain in Eric McCoy going back and forth in a heated exchange. And you also have to take into account that Eric McCoy isn't one of those guys that just blows up at folks. He's not one of those guys. He's an even keel type of individual. People talk about how kind he is for a person that plays his position. Mostly offensive linemen, they're kind of, rugged and kind of hard to talk to. They got this, this aggression about them. Is kind of makes them makes you reluctant to try to approach guys like that. But Eric McCoy isn't that type of guy. So for him to blow up at Derek Carr, it had to be something. And of course, the relationship that Nick Underhill and the rest of Saints media has covering his team as long as they have, they understand the personalities of Eric McCoy. And for all those people out there, that's out here caping for Derek Carr, talking about, man, Derek Carr, this happens in locker rooms. I want people to understand this. Now, even though the New Orleans Saints have had some issues where guys, getting into it, of course, we know about the classic Michael Thomas, Seedy Deuce, fight at practice. We know about, Drew Brees and Jared Cook having a heated exchange in a game versus the Kansas City Chiefs. But you never really see any of these guys like blowing up in the middle of the game to a point where guys can't even get to the sidelines in order for the cameras, for the most part, not to even be on. But this guy seems to want to be as animated as possible in real time. And I think I'm comfortable with saying this. Derek Carr, to me, strikes me as a person that is a sort of a cancer inside of the locker room. And honestly, I got a large enough sample size from former players that have came out during a time where he was playing for the Raiders, like conversations I've had with Raider coaches, some of the interviews that I've seen in regards to him. And now you add Eric McCoy, Chris Olave, and the blow up with Pete Carmichael on the sidelines. If it walks like a duck, sounds like a duck, flies like a duck, it's not a Kodiak bear, it's a duck. And this dude has a little bit of some cancerous type behaviors. And then he has the audacity, the unmitigated gall to go in front of the media and gets upset with them asking him questions that are well justified, that are justifiable because of his behavior. But he doesn't want to ask him. And that is who that nation, why Derek Carr fails to connect with New Orleans Saints fans. We are not used to this. When you have a quarterback like Drew Brees, who will sit in front of the media, good times, bad times, and you see him in games where he may throw 3, 4 touchdowns and the defense lets him down, but he's still talking about, I need to play better. He's sitting up there with 3 and 4 touchdowns, over 65% completion percentage, and the defense couldn't make a stop at the end of the game, and he's still sitting up there saying, we got to do better. And then you turn around and see this guy who won absolutely nothing, has done absolutely nothing throughout his 10-year career besides fall flat on his face and have every excuse known to man given by him in the media. And he sits up here like he won something, but he doesn't want to answer these questions that are justifiable. And that is what rubs New Orleans fans the wrong way. The question is, what the hell have you won? Why are you acting as if you're the savior of this franchise? And that's cool if you want to act that way. You can act the way that you want to. But when you act that way and the play on the field ain't matching the attitude. If Derek Carr had this type of attitude and he threw for 350 yards with 4 touchdowns with a 68% completion percentage, people would probably be like, man, that was kind of rough, but we would probably go on with our lives. But the fact that you're sitting up here like you're the savior to New Orleans Saints football and you look about as pedestrian as an old lady walking across the street, it is hard for us to sit up here and have to subject ourselves to listen to you and listen to the nonsense coming out your mouth when we know for a fact that you're not playing up to standard. So how in the world can you call out anybody, anyone, for their lackluster play when you had 37 yards until 8 minutes into the 4th freaking quarter? Somebody make that make sense to me. If you're playing as pedestrian as you are, you're lucky anybody wants to ask you anything. But this is the quarterback that we have. I'm going to continue to say this. New Orleans is a city that if you love it, it will love you back. It will love you as hard as it possibly can. If you show love to New Orleans, once again, it will show love to you back. But if you show yourself as phony, if you show yourself as unloyal, if you show yourself as a person that just wants to poke blame, New Orleans will chew you up and spit you out and not think twice about you. And he is on the road, I'm telling you, of being one of the most vilified players in the history of that city. Like he is almost trumping Anthony Davis type stuff right here. Like this guy, I never seen in my entire life, I never seen a fan base turn on a player as quickly as New Orleans Saints fans has turned on Derek Carr. And honestly, when you hear this guy talk and you see him deflecting blame, you can understand why. And I'm not saying this because I'm trying to hate on Derek Carr. I'm saying it because it's true. Go back and just listen to old interviews after Raider losses from guys like Josh Jacobs and other players and tell me that you don't see a little bit of a resemblance when it comes to the energy in that locker room and the energy of this locker room now. And before I get to the comments, I want to say this. It also does not help when you have the enabler, that is Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen, who is so quick to call out Jordan Howden after the media said the young man, the rookie out of Minnesota, played pretty well, right? Getting involved in the game, flying all over the field. He even says, well, he did a good job, but there's some things that he needs to work on. There's some things he needs to improve his game. Gave direct detail. But it took 2 attempts in order for him to criticize Derek Carr in any way when it comes to his play. 37 yards from a guy that you paid $150 $150 million to. A 10-year veteran can only muster up 37 yards until 8 minutes into the fourth quarter. And once again, I ain't trying to hear about no injuries, because if you're injured, then you should be sitting down. And that is a selfish move. So don't tell me nothing about your ribs bothering you. Don't tell me anything about you having a concussion symptoms. Don't tell me anything about the soreness in your arm, because you could have avoided that by sitting down. But you have Dennis Allen, who is enabling him, trying to, handle him with fine-tooth gloves and just say, well, what do you want me to say? We want you to say the same thing you said about Jordan Howden. And it shouldn't take Catherine Terrell and several members of the media to pull it out of you. So when you combine that along with him being, showing very little contrition until somebody actually calls him out countless times. And even with that, it's more so like, you haven't brought me to this point. Let me just tell you what you want to hear so you can shut up. I don't feel this way about myself. I don't feel like I did that bad. I think it was other people, but I think y'all want me to blame myself, so I'm going to blame myself. As long as Derek Carr has this mind frame and behavior, he will never be ingratiated into New Orleans culture. And people will be happy to see him go as soon as the opportunity presents itself. But let me go ahead and read some of your comments, man. Let me read some of your comments. Thank y'all so much for being here. Bron says, preach TJ. Derek says players that can leave will, in my opinion, if DA is brought back. I agree. And honestly, as a Saints fan, and I know this may sound like a controversial thing, but y'all know me, I'm at the point, I don't care. I don't even blame them. I don't blame them for wanting to leave, because if your general manager / executive vice president is so delusional and so much of an egomaniac that he cannot see the obvious that is in front of everybody, that this guy is slowly starting to have your fan base disinterested in your product. People aren't coming to the games. You selling tickets about the same price as I don't know, some cotton candy or something like that. Like, this is absolutely embarrassing. But you refuse to sit up there and acknowledge the truth. You rather sit up there and say, well, I'm a glass half full type guy. You know how I roll, Mike. I think we're 12 in passing. We did some really good things there. And, of course, there's some things that we need to work on. Yeah, we're on a 3-game losing streak, but I believe we got the right guys in the building. I really believe that. Who cares? Like, you can keep on saying all these things all you want to try to convince us that he's the answer. But this guy is slowly starting to make Saints fans disinterested in the product. So if he is that delusional, I don't blame any player for walking into that office and saying, I want to request a trade, or have their agents call up the building and say, my client wants to be traded. I don't blame him at this point. Breeze took accountability for stuff even when it wasn't his fault. We've seen this on so many different occasions. It almost became a little bit of a parody. Like Drew Brees goes down, lead the team to a go-ahead lead. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then all of a sudden, the defense is the last line of defense and they can't stop nobody. And Drew Brees goes up there and he basically talking about, we got to do better, we got to do this, we got to do that. But there we go. The dark side says, but Carr answered the question, but Nick Underhill was not accepting Carr's answer. He didn't answer the question. He didn't answer the question at all. Like, you know what I'm saying? It was a follow-up question. Okay, they got into it. But he also had a follow-up question for him. He asked him, and this was justified because this was what Derek Carr said. He said, I got to get my emotions in check. I shouldn't have blown up like this. We talking about the game versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. I have to work on my anger, and I have to understand that this is a different team and people don't know me like that. You're doing the same thing. So I feel like it's well within Nick Underhill's rights to ask him about this behavior, because it's almost like a person that smokes and they say, I can quit anytime I want to. And then all of a sudden, he's like, matter of fact, I'm going to quit today. And then the next time you see that person, they smoking a cigarette. I thought you told me that you were going to stop smoking. I thought Derek Carr wasn't going to be blowing up at teammates on the field. But here we go again. So if you make a statement that you want to change this behavior, but you're still showing that particular behavior, it is well within that person's rights, the member of the media, to ask you that question. You can't get mad because you made the statement that you were going to bring on a change. And when that change has not taken place, it's well within the media's rights to ask you what the problem is. Carr wants to clock in and clock out. Breeze would have just answered the damn question. Let's see. Carr walks around with the silver spoon in his rear. Carr did answer the question, though. No, Carr did not answer the question. Carr answered part of the question, and the guy had a follow-up question that he didn't want to hear. Let's see. Any other team are we losing by at least 2 scores? See, TJ, I'm able to catch you before I go to work. Well, I'm glad to hear that, Lee. Says Carolina were stupid for thinking they needed to score and go for the 4th and out. Back us up on a long field. We make too many mistakes, and it would be way closer. Let's see. Carr is yet to admit that he's not playing up to the level that he's is making. Eric McCoy went on record and apologized for yesterday's event. I think someone else should apologize. I'm glad you brought that up because I got that clip as well. This is the voice of Eric McCoy, after the game being asked about the little exchange between he and Derek Carr. And listen.
We just had a disagreement. Emotions are high. My emotions were high. His emotions were high about how things have been going through the game. And I lost my cool. So I would like a public disagreement deserves a public apology. So we talked about it already, person to person. But out loud, I would like to say, Derek Carr, I am sorry. I let my emotions get the best of me, and that's not okay.
So there's Eric McCoy right there. I'm taking responsibility. I'm sorry. It wasn't. He said I was wrong. He was wrong. There wasn't none of that, right? This is a guy taking a responsibility, and that's like I said, that's what people pay attention to, for right or for wrong. Carr only had 1 full day of practice. I don't want to hear it. Who cares? Like, if you only this is what bothers me about you Carr supporters out there. Like, what you're not understanding is nobody is making him play. Like, you can't go out there, play like slow, and then you have all these underlying injuries, and then all of a sudden, we're supposed to feel sorry for you for doing it. That is a selfish move. If I'm playing basketball and I'm like, one of the best players on the team, right? I go up, I catch a rebound, I come down on my ankle, I can barely walk on that thing, right? The name of the game is for me running up and down the court, but I know I can't run up and down the court. But like, I'm hurting my team if I can't be fast enough to play defense. If I know for a fact that all the guy had to do is make 1 step and go make a layup, I am hurting my team. You get no stripes. You get no stripes for being injured, knowing that you're hindered, but wanting to go out there for what? You're hurting the team. So I don't want to hear it. I don't care how many days he practiced. And that's what it is. It's always some type of excuse. You got 10 years worth of work. This dude has 1 playoff win in his entire career. 1. And honestly, if he's as good as people say that he is, why is it that he can't elevate the people around him? Why does his circumstances have to work for him in order for him to live up to his true potential? I am tired of hearing Raider fans talk about if he had this, if he had that. If you need this, that, and the third, you're not very good. You're not very good. Great players, great quarterbacks, elevate the players around them. And honestly, they may not have a bunch of years where they're just leading their team to the playoffs, but you're going to see that this player matters to a point where everybody around him seems to get better. That's the definition of elite. You all are trying to make this dude better than what he actually is. Is he serviceable? Yes. Is the coaching staff failing him? I will concede and say yes. But this dude ain't a world beater. And he's not like he's average at best. And I'm not trying to hear about no injuries. I'm sorry. I ain't trying to hear about no freaking injuries. If you hurt, don't play. If you got to make an excuse for your piss poor performance, don't play. You're playing a 1-11 football team. Once again, if the Saints can't beat the Carolina Panthers without you, then you're not very good in the first place. So I ain't trying to hear that. Don't tell me his limitations. Don't talk to me about his limitations. If he decides to go out there and play, I ain't trying to hear it. I'm not. Because nobody put a weapon to Derek Carr's head and said, you better play. It was his decision. So for that, I don't care. Like, I'm judging you based on you being on the field. Because if you would have went out there and wrecked shop and tore it up, we would have been hearing about how much of a warrior you are. Oh, how tough. What a warrior effort. Look at Derek Carr. 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. Nah, bro. You can't have it both ways. I'm not about to sit up here. and act, you know what I'm saying, like, and be like that, because this was his choice. It was his decision to play. His. Let's see. Eric McCoy is a grown man and team captain, and he showed Derek Carr how to be a captain. Yeah. Correction. Carr has no playoff wins. He has 1 playoff appearance. No playoff wins. So, still. And you've been in the league 10 years? You've been in the league 10 years, you only have 1 playoff appearance, 1 loss. I'll give you 2, okay? Because it was 1 year, I guess he played pretty good and he ended up getting injured, which seems like that's a trend. Anytime like a game is, big or a certain magnitude, it just seems like he just never around to play. But I digress. Jameis Winston has to come off the bench, and this Carr apologist capping about him, or caping for him, not practicing but 1 day. Man, like I said, look, this dude is a veteran. Nobody put a weapon to this guy's head and told him to play. If you're not 100%, don't play. It's just that simple. I'm not trying to hear any type of excuses whatsoever about this dude. Like, seriously, you have no excuses. We're not talking about C.J. Stroud. We're not talking about Bryce Young. We're not talking about Will Levis. We're talking about a guy who has been in the league for 10 years. 10 years. This guy's been a franchise quarterback for 10 years. And let's put this thing into perspective. Right? This dude's supposed to be all that in a Hot Wheel track. And based on the situation, if he had this and had that, then he would be better. The Saints, for better or for worse, and it hasn't been the best, but they have a better defense. They have better offensive players. And if this dude was as good as you say that he is, despite the fact of bad coaching, because we see this all the time when we see certain players be able to rise above bad coaching. So if this dude was as good as everybody trying to make him out to be, especially these Raider fans, number one, if he's so good, why is he no longer with your team? Number two, why is it that these guys seem like they were more happier to see him go than actually be there? Number three, if Dennis Allen is a lame duck coach, which we all know that he is, and Derek Carr is an elite, why is it that you can't win football games with Michael Thomas when he was there, Chris Olave, and don't give me that stuff like they ain't there no more. He had 10 games with these dudes before anybody started to get hurt. 10. So if he's like that, if he's that guy, if he's that dude, he should be able to rise above coaching. He should be able to rise above coaching. So that tells you everything that you need to know right there. I'm not trying to hear it. He is not all that. If he's all that, why isn't he with the Raiders anymore? You're not going to get rid, like as bad as the Raiders have been. Do you honestly believe that they would relinquish a player if they felt like they can actually win something with him. Nuff said. He's afraid of Jameis Winston making him look bad. Misdemeanor crimes, of course. Derek Carr should get the Finesse Award of the Year for getting that contract. Carr had less passing yards than Young in this game and easy red zone touchdown. Gail want fire Loomis, so we stuck with mediocrity, bad contracts, and toxic culture. Smallville, thank you very much for the $2, says, how about the fans calling Jameis Winston? Yep, and like I said, that whole situation about Jameis coming out there taking a knee, that was a slap in the face because those fans were chanting, "We want Jameis," and the Saints ended up winning 28-6. With some late garbage time touchdowns. So they put Jameis Winston out there to basically say, "You want Jameis? Well, here you go. There he is." Nah, let him take a kneel down after we came out here and beat Carolina 28-6. Since y'all want him so much, that was a shot at the fan. There was no need for Jameis Winston to go out there and take that knee. Mickey knows he made a mistake, but he's too prideful to admit it with Carr. Man, everything been a mistake. Other quarterbacks have had less and played better. Let's see, Smallville, how about DA sending him in for the kneel down at the end of the game? Yeah, that was just, like I said, that was just a middle finger to the fans. Mickey would never admit that mistake on the record. Corey Tate, yep, that's why they act in the way that they are, because they can't admit Carr was a mistake. We need to utilize this draft and get us a quarterback. I'm sick of the mediocrity. Adam, that ain't happening. I'm just being honest. That is not happening. I don't see them. I do not see them drafting a quarterback. This is this is organization that is defiant to the end. Like I'm serious. Like looking at these executives, Mickey Loomis, and all these, like they see how empty this Superdome looking. They see that Saints fans are giving up tickets, and they still don't care. Like they just don't care. They're like, man, whatever. Like we gonna show them. Like, yeah, okay. Jim Mora called Carr average. Yeah, I mean he is. Look, Derek Carr is not the worst quarterback I've ever seen. I think he pretty solid. I will say solid with the right coaching. I just think that the Saints made a huge mistake. It was Dennis Allen's fault. Dennis Allen thought he was getting Aaron Rodgers. Like he thought he was getting a young Aaron Rodgers. Like, look, if the Saints would have signed Aaron Rodgers, like, minus like the Achilles injury and all that kind of stuff there, they would have been better. They would have been a better football team because Aaron Rodgers is that type of quarterback that Dennis Allen needs in order for him to save his job. He's a quarterback that can see the field, put his receivers in positions to succeed, and make the whole offense go with very little help from the offensive coordinators. Because you have quarterbacks that are like that, right? It's almost like back in the day in the 90s when the Bulls used to play. Like I used to find it funny when I used to be watching WGN, watching the Chicago Bulls games, and the Bulls just got the game well in hand. You'd be seeing Phil Jackson sitting on the bench with a Diet Coke in his hand, about to spill it because he done passed out, almost went to sleep on the bench because Michael Jordan just scored 50, and Michael Jordan basically was coaching the team from start to finish. Like, this is what Dennis Allen needs. And that's what he thought he got in Derek Carr. But as you can see, Derek Carr isn't one of those quarterbacks. If Aaron Rodgers would have signed with the New Orleans Saints, and the Saints probably would have won this division already. But Derek Carr is not that type of quarterback. Derek Carr isn't the type of quarterback where he's going to see the field for himself, going to be able to analyze certain things and be able to break certain things down and put his receivers in position to succeed on a more consistent basis like an elite quarterback would. So he needs somebody to reel him in. So if the Saints go out here and they get themselves another coordinator, which it looks like they will because they're going to end up retaining Dennis Allen, and we're going to be subjected to this nonsense yet again, It's going to have to be somebody that's going to help him see the field. And when that happens, I feel like you're going to see some better football out of him. He's just not that type of quarterback. The Saints thought they was getting that type, but he's not. LOL, A-Rod got injured. What are you saying? You know that now. Hindsight is 2020. So, man, I see why y'all fan base don't win much. I can see that. I can see why y'all don't win much. Because you're really in a New Orleans Saints chat. Think about this. You're really in a New Orleans Saints chat. And you have your team, in my opinion, the court, you know what I'm saying, actually look more happier, even though they lost yesterday. But for them to lose like that, the defense playing good. You got a defensive end in Matt Crosby who could be up for Defensive Player of the Year. You got a young quarterback in Aiden O'Connell who probably could end up being better than Derek Carr. But instead, you want to sit up here and comment for a team that you don't even root for a quarterback that is no longer with your team and has spent 10 years, and is responsible for 10 years of ineptitude of your franchise. But yet you're going back and forth with me and everybody in the chat, lobbying and caping for a guy who in 10 years has only managed to give your team 2 playoff appearances. Somebody help me make that make sense to me. Once again, hindsight is 2020. If the Saints were to sign Aaron Rodgers, based on what we known, with the torn Achilles, right? They just signed him, and he's playing like Derek plays now. The Saints would have sold up the division by then, but of course, we got to make this thing harder than what it is. We got to move the goalpost. The fact that you don't actually see that, realize that, is absolutely ridiculous. You're literally on a Saints podcast, being a Raiders fan, caping for a guy who played for your organization for 9 seasons and gave you 2 playoff appearances and a losing record as a franchise quarterback. Somebody help me. There is no way in the world I would do that. This man is on here rooted is trying to lobby for a dude that has won your organization absolutely nothing. Somebody help me make that make sense. TJ, I couldn't make sense of that if Einstein tried to explain it. Let's see. Caping for Carr makes no sense. He's looking like a lemon who needs to be attached to a semi-truck. Just go get past the 50-yard lines on a consistent basis. Let's see. Jigga, you ain't lying. What a dummy. I won't call it a dummy, but it just don't make sense to me. Why are you on here lobbying and caping for a guy? This guy has been with your organization for 9 seasons. He has 2 playoff wins. He has a below 500 record as a starting quarterback. But we're supposed to believe that this dude is the answer to the Saints' problems. That makes no sense. You have no evidence that A-Rod would be playing good. What? Man, somebody get this loser up out my chat, man. Like, you got to be out. This dude... Is this dude really sitting up here honestly believing that if Aaron Rodgers was the starting quarterback of the New Orleans Saints, minus the fact that you know now that he would have a torn Achilles, you're telling me that Aaron Rodgers would not be a better starting quarterback? A 4-time league MVP in Aaron Rodgers, a Super Bowl champion in Aaron Rodgers, a multi-time playoff appearance starting quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. You're saying to me You're telling me that Aaron Rodgers you're saying to me that Aaron Rodgers would not man, somebody get this dude out of here. Somebody get this dude. I cannot believe this dude just said this. This dude just said this. This dude just literally said this on a live stream. This man really sat up here and said that the Saints would not have a better chance to win with Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback. Man, he got to be in Vegas. I know weed is legal down there in Vegas. I know it's legal, man. But it got to be about 9 o'clock, man. You talk about waking, babe. This dude out his mind. You got to be, that got to be a joke. But honestly, the craziest thing about it is, Who Dat Nation, I don't think it is a joke. I think he dead serious. I think he's serious. I think dude's serious. This dude seriously sit up here and said this. He said, do I believe that Aaron Rodgers would be better than Derek Carr? He don't feel like Aaron Rodgers would play better or put the Saints in a better chance to win. Oh my God. My goodness, man. My goodness. TJ, remember we shut Carr and the Raiders out last year? Cocaine is a hell of a drug, TJ. Why did McCoy blow up on Carr? I think it had something to do with the protection. I don't know. All I know was that was funny, hilarious. I'd rather Cam Newton than Derek Carr. TJ, that boy need his urine tested on an hour every hour. AR-12 would have definitely showed out if he didn't get injured. I thought we would at least taken a go at him. Said, that's not what I said. Hold on, wait a minute. I want to make sure I'm making this clear. I won't put no words in your mouth. But it sounds to me, hold on. No. Let's see, again, I guarantee you Saints have a better record and make playoffs. That's not saying much. You're playing in the NFC South. You have no evidence that A-Rod would be playing good. He's not. I ain't got no evidence. A couple, just what, 1 year removed, this dude was league MVP. What are you? These boys had home field advantage. Just what they had home field advantage, what, year before last? Come on, man. What are you talking about? What are you saying, man? Man, come on, man. We just gonna ignore you, man, for real. I'm giving you enough time, but that my goodness. Boy, hey TJ, what you think the finale record would be for the Saints at the end of the season? 9-8. I say about 9-8. Where Trevor Penning at on the bench. Put Derek Carr on the Packers while Aaron Rodgers was there, and Carr would have done nothing. You put Aaron Rodgers on the Raiders the year where Devontae Adams first came to the Raiders, and the Raiders are a playoff team, a deep run playoff team. You put Derek Carr and look, I put it this way. This is the God heaven's truth. You put Derek Carr on probably some of the most successful franchises, and they probably wouldn't live up to expectations. You'll probably, you'll get some solid play, but, only people that should cape for Carr at this point are his immediate family and close friends. I mean, this is hilarious, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. This man won, 4 league MVPs, multi-time All-Pro, all-decade team. Man, I'm pretty confident. I'm very confident that Aaron Rodgers will make this team look better. I guarantee you, the Saints probably at this stage, what after how many games the Saints have played? 13. I guarantee you, the Saints will probably have 9 wins if Aaron Rodgers was their quarterback. Probably 10. They'll probably have 10 wins. Saints will probably be 10-3 right now, or 9-4. So like something like that. Like with Aaron Rodgers as the quarterback. Ain't like because Aaron Rodgers once again can rise above the coaching. He's smart enough. He's more of a quarterback intellectual. You know what I'm saying? He can win games without really needing much help from the offensive coordinator. Like he can put his team in a position to succeed. He can make the audibles. He can call out the mics. He can call out the blitz packages. You know, like all the things that you need your franchise elite quarterback to do. Did you see Dennis Allen throw that challenge flag when the play was already going on? Yeah, I saw that. You know, they were talking about all he had to do was basically just kind of shuck it down to the field. He talking about he tried to toss that thing like he playing darts. Look, that was just an unfortunate circumstance, but that's just one of those situations, I guess, like when it rains, it pours. So it's like, nothing seems to be going right. So everything just, completely just gets blown out of proportion, which I will admit I never seen anything like that before, where a coach just tries to throw a flag but just doesn't make it in time. Like usually, the refs like, oh, you can't challenge that. I just never seen it like, never get thrown in time. But that's there too. Coaching staff, they got to be on the same page, man. You got to be talking to these guys in a headset so y'all can make a decision right then and there. So let's see. The Giants are going to be a problem. I thought we would beat the Panthers, but I don't know about the Giants. I mean, the Giants are a good football team. Sometimes, like sometimes they go out there and they play well, especially like when you don't think they will. And Tommy DeVito been playing pretty well, man. I mean, he been lighting it up. Oh, he had 7 touchdowns in the month of November. Third string quarterback, living at his mama house, sleeping on his mama couch. And the next thing you know, you're throwing touchdown passes to Saquon Barkley. Look, it's going to be interesting, man, because Brian Daboll, for better or for worse, I mean, he is an offensive innovator, and he can come up with exotic and creative ways to win football games. And we all know that dealing with different type of motions and quarterbacks moving outside the pocket. So I look at the Giants, understanding that more than likely they're not making the playoffs. They're not going to win anything, but I can see them going out there battling and playing pretty loose and free. Like when all you got to do is just go out here and play spoiler. Hey, I'm gonna take a few more, but I'm just letting everybody know. Immediately following this show, you can come on over to Bleacher Report. I will be going live on Bleacher Report and talk a little bit more about this Saints game. I'll be breaking down, different details, talking about some of the players, some of the plays and stuff like that. So come on over to Bleacher Report. What I'll do is I'm try to get it. And maybe you can come on over and check it out. Be a part of it. I would look forward to seeing some of you. Let me make sure that I'm actually trying to pull up the link here so everybody can get it. Let me try to see if I can get this link here. And I'll just put this down in the comments. If you're interested, you have a little bit of time, you can come on over. It's going to be at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time, which is 11:30 Central. So if you want to talk a little bit more. But for a few minutes before we close it out, I do want to talk about some of the positive things, that happened. I feel like the running game got on track. Alvin Kamara ran the ball pretty well. Jamal Williams, to me, is probably this was his best game as a rusher. But I do feel like, Jamal Williams kind of suffers due to the fact that the Saints utilize Taysom Hill so much in the running game. And Jamal Williams is more of those like preheat type running backs where he just gets stronger as the game goes along. And the more that you feed him, the better he becomes. It started getting around third, fourth quarter. Defensive linemen, linebackers, they get tired of tackling these guys. So Jamal Williams is that type of guy. And it was like one of the first times we seen all season where we seen the Saints running game kind of complement one another, Jamal Williams and Alvin Kamara. So that was a good look. A.T. Perry catching a long pass. I just wish that they'll get that young kid involved a little bit more. I feel like this would be the opportunity to do it in a game where Chris Olave was sick. Juwan Johnson has been leaving a lot to be desired. So I would have thought like A.T. Perry probably would have had a better game. Lynn Bowden got a lot more touches. He took advantage of it, did a really good job in the special teams game. And not to mention special teams for getting that block on Johnny Hecker. That was really good. DeMarco Jackson scooping it up for a touchdown. He's been doing a really good job on special teams. And it's good, because Andrew Dowell was lost for the season. Andrew Dowell kind of became that successor to Craig Robinson, being that star player on special teams. But DeMarco Jackson has been doing a really good job. And, that's how you stay on teams. That's how you stay on teams. That's how you continue to get a steady paycheck. That's how you continue to kind of go up the depth chart, because, being on special teams, it gives you an opportunity to not only have a spot on the team, but it also gives you another opportunity to develop, and maybe you'll be able to see more playing time. So those are some of the positive things that I saw in the game, and I feel like the Saints need to work on. And of course, Jimmy Graham. The question is, why did it take so long for this to happen? You had so many different red zone issues throughout games. How beneficial would it have been if you would have used Jimmy Graham? And, you have the coaching staff. They seem like they're upset that people are asking questions about why aren't you using Jimmy Graham, which is a fair question to ask, don't you think? The fact that every time he touches the ball, he seems to score a touchdown. Him being 37 years old don't seem to be much of an issue. But instead, you're trying to make Juwan Johnson work, which is clearly has not worked. And Foster Moreau, who I have a lot of respect for, but he isn't a guy that's going to set the world on fire from the tight end position. So to me, I feel like the Saints need to utilize some of these weapons that they have. To me, I just feel like the reason why they weren't using a lot of these guys is because simply they're lazy and they're limited. And I think they understand what Pete Carmichael is as a play caller. They don't want to put too much on his plate. They don't want to, have his mind wavering and going all over the place, because he doesn't really know how to utilize some of these guys. And that is the reason why the Saints need to go in a different direction for an offensive play caller. I feel like the type of philosophies of a Pete Carmichael is kind of passe. I think that when you combine the fact that I never really looked at him as an offensive coordinator in the first place, more like a guy as just a placeholder, maybe someone that Sean Payton just kind of liked and, probably bounce some ideas off of, but never really had the ability to be able to call a game consistently. He's almost like a backup quarterback that you might tell him, okay, I want you to go out here week 14. Our starting quarterback is down. I need you to go out there and play. And he might go out there and he might throw for 312 yards and 3 touchdowns. And everybody looking like, man, they got something there. And then all of a sudden, like the next game where the next team got some tape on him, and you look at him and he getting sacked, he throwing interceptions, kind of like Josh Dobbs, right? Josh Dobbs comes to the Minnesota Vikings, plays the Falcons. Falcons don't really have much tape on him or how they're going to approach him, and he wins. And then the Saints play him the next week, and then he looks like Michael Vick mixed with Randall Cunningham around that joint. And then all of a sudden they play the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos showed that if you blitz him, then he gets rattled. They showed you that if you approach him in a certain way, this is going to happen. And then yesterday, he got benched for Nick Mullins. That is what I look at when I see Pete Carmichael. Pete Carmichael would probably, in a game, if you tell him, okay, we're going to get you to call the plays, he'll probably do a good job. But to ask him to do it game in, game out, week in, week out, it's just not going to happen. So the Saints going to have to move on. That's the only way you're going to be able to, take advantage of the prime years of Alvin Kamara, take advantage of the mismatch of Jimmy Graham, have Juwan Johnson live up to his potential, maybe even have Michael Thomas happy, having Chris Olave looking like he is a number one guy and using Rashid Shaheed in a special way as well. So that's what you need. And, the sooner the Saints do this, the better. And I'm pretty sure they're going to do it because everything kind of leads to the fact that they're going to use P. Carmichael as a scapegoat. Juwan should be riding Pine until the offseason and then cut him, boom, buddy, immediately. I expect so much better from the dude, and he's been the complete opposite. You're getting outplayed by a 38-year-old. Yeah, I agree with that. And I also think that goes back to what I'm saying. This coaching staff, in my opinion, has an issue and has a problem with developing players. I mean, it's just that simple. They have an issue with developing players. So, I mean, it's hard for me to just sit up here and say, oh, man, something wrong with Juwan Johnson. Oh, something going on. Nobody's really gotten better. Nobody, like, to me, under this coaching staff, nobody has really gotten better. Nobody. Like, you can look at maybe Paulson Adebo. I guess you can put Carl Granderson. But to me, like I said, Carl Granderson, the only difference between like how he's playing now and what he's playing then is just more opportunities. Like Carl Granderson always took advantage of his opportunities. Like Carl Granderson would get in for a few snaps and you'll still see him, tackling somebody for a loss or sacking a quarterback. What player can you just definitively say that under Dennis Allen and his coaching staff, they're better? Like, to me, look, it's hard for me to blame these players. It's hard for me to blame these dudes when I know that this coaching staff is incompetent. It's hard for me to sit up here and say Juwan Johnson is terrible or, what's going on with Jamal Williams. Like, it's hard for me to sit up here and just blame these players and say, oh, these guys aren't good enough when we all see that this coaching staff is trash. So I feel like even in some cases when it comes to Derek Carr, I know some people may not want to hear that, but I do feel like if Derek Carr had better coaching, he would be a better quarterback. My biggest issue when it comes to Derek Carr is the fact that you can't rise above this coaching and you're still talking. I'm not saying the dude is terrible. Well, he's playing terrible. I always say he's playing terrible. But he's not living up to the expectations. I will concede that he's much better than he's shown. But nobody under this coaching staff get better. My axe to grind with Derek Carr is the lack of leadership qualities. Like deflecting blame, not wanting to take accountability. Like that's just the role of it. Like sometimes it don't be your fault. But you gotta show that you're a leader. Like people want to show and see that the person that they're rooting for, that they want that person to show that they're a leader, and they want to believe that person is a leader. That's my biggest issue. But this coaching staff has failed a lot of guys. So it's hard for me to sit up here and say, man, Juwan Johnson, cut that bum. You know what I'm saying? It's hard for me to do that. It's hard. And I want to give these guys the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. Let's see. Cleveland Browns looking like genius for signing former Super Bowl champion quarterback Joe Flacco as their third-string quarterback as they beat the Jaguars yesterday. We are still trying to find a good quarterback, TJ. David, I will say this. Kevin Stefanski is a better offensive mind than Pete Carmichael at this stage, right? Kevin Stefanski has, evolved is an evolved offensive play caller. And you have Pete Carmichael who is lost in space. So if Joe Flacco was to come to the Saints, to me, he would look just like Derek Carr, just like Andy Dalton, just like all the rest of them, Like there's no difference. If you change this coaching staff, will you see the potential of a lot of these guys? And honestly, I think that if you were to change this coaching staff, I think that a lot of apologies would have to be given out. And maybe some, as far as the play, would be towards Derek Carr. Seriously. Like, I think this coaching staff has failed a lot of these guys, which making us believe that these dudes are just god awful. But it's the coaching staff that is really holding these guys back. Like, to me, like I said, I don't care who it is. If this was Joe Flacco would be looking like slow. If this was Jake Browning, who's had 2 really good games with Cincinnati since Joe Burrow has been out, he would be looking like slow. It doesn't matter. That's why I'm telling people, like, let's not. We talk about Jake Haener, like, man, leave that man on the bench. Like, I'm not trying to see this young man's confidence get destroyed messing around with Pete Carmichael and Dennis Allen. But I want to say thank you all for checking out the State of the Saints podcast once again. We're about to switch over at 11:30 Central to Bleacher Report. I'm going to put the link down there again. For those that want to go over to Bleacher Report, we'll be talking about the game. I'll be breaking down the game, talking stats, basically talking about what happened in the game when it comes to the Saints. Of course, Dennis Allen, comments towards the media. And, Mickey Loomis, 200 wins. So come on over to Bleacher Report for the live stream, 12:30 Eastern time, 11:30 Central. So that's in the next 10 minutes. If you're watching this live, I would look forward to seeing some of you. You can put some of your comments down in the chat, just like how we do it here. And I really do appreciate each and every one of your time. For those that can't, previous episodes of the iHeartRadio, Anchor FM, and you can follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at TJAY Jones 8. Till next time, all I gotta say is, who dat?
Hey, don't let these tears fool you. It's all dog around this mug. I'm good.